Today, not only is the editor still alive, but he has become the director's key collaborator. No other crew member spends as much time working alone with the director.
Finding the relationship with the editor is like trying to decide whether or not to get married. Because if the marriage isn't a good one, it's going to be a sticky divorce.
When I was doing my first movie, the only thing I knew is I wanted a female editor. Because I just felt a female editor would be more nurturing to the movie and to me. It wouldn't try to be winning their way just to win their way, all right? They wouldn't be trying to shove their agenda or win their battles with me. They would be nurturing me through this process.
I think editors play a big role with directors in giving them support, making them feel like they can look at something that may have trouble or problems and be comfortable enough so that they can approach those problems.
Hi, Vincent. I'm getting dressed.
In the beginning, he really doesn't guide me. And then I put together what I think he wants. And pretty much we work together so long that I can judge what he would want.
And it was sort of like Sally's job to kind of like, you know, little by little convince me to bring it down and bring it down and bring it down. And it still could be fun. You would still have what I'm talking about, but maybe it wouldn't be so painful.
He did want it to feel very much like a date. And it was very long at first. And we just had to kind of live with it for a while.
Just like, you know, letting me live with it long enough so I could eventually, okay, I've had it enough, I've seen that enough. Okay, maybe now I can use this part. Okay, so now it's like here and now it's like here.
Finally, we'd bring it down and bring it down, and then I kind of brought it too far down, and then he said, we got to bring it back up.
That's it. No more, no more, no more, no more. This is not a video.
We do that for 8 months. So intense. I see him more than my husband.
And sometimes I, you know, get annoyed with her for not reading my mind 100%. I mean, all right, you know, it's not good enough that she reads it 80% of the time, all right?
We work very intensely together, and it's kind of amazing to like each other. If I was with my husband that long, I don't think I'd like him that much.
By the time I thought of an idea, written it, found the financing, cast the film, directed it, I get to the cutting room and it's like I've washed up on shore. I'm so happy to be there, because then I think, now we can start making the film.
It's so hard to be a director, and it's hard on the set. By the time they come in the cutting room the first week, they're just, you know, half the people they were when they started out. You know, they're shells of the people they were. And at least in my cutting room, I try to make it very easygoing and try to heal them back into shape so that they can get to work on the movie.
When Matthew Broderick is busted from having thrown the election, he enters the principal's office and sees all the people gathered there who know he's guilty.
Mr. McAllister, I hope you can help us clear something up.
He wanted to cut it like the end sequence of the good and the bad and the ugly, with holding on the faces for a really long time, dwelling in music. Was like, no, let's cut it really fast and build a climax.
And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was cheesy and it called too much attention to itself.
And he just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to put it in the movie like that. So finally I said, I'll pay you $25.
And I said, no, let's not do that.
I go, okay, 50.
And I said, no.
He's like, no.
And I said, 75.
So he even gave me an invoice, and it says I owe $75. So I paid him $75 to cut it in. And that's how it is now.
I think successful editors are really sly politicians.
The Russian Revolution sparked a revolution in film editing as well.
the crazy Russians started fucking around with images, all right, and juxtaposing them and creating different emotional effects.
Lenin saw film as the perfect medium to inspire his largely illiterate nation to join the revolution.
They took these films out in the middle of farmlands and showed it to the farmers and the peasants. They began to understand that they could get a certain emotional, psychological effect by a certain type of cutting from one image to the next. And that became a manipulation of what the audience was feeling.
The Russian filmmakers rejected the bourgeois stories and seamless editing practiced by Griffith. Instead of melodrama, they offered real life. To make the film Man with a Movie Camera, documentary filmmaker Dziga Vertov and his team took his cameras into the streets to record a typical day in Moscow.
It's constantly reminding me that I'm watching a movie. There are scenes inside an editing room. You see how they edited movies back in 1929. They were engaged in a pure explosion of creative activity in manipulating these images. Every modern editing convention that we know of is demonstrated in Man with a Movie Camera.
The film celebrated not just the revolution, but the role of the cameraman and the editor in helping to create it. Vertov and his wife, Elizaveta, cut their documentaries and newsreels in dark basements with rats scuttling underfoot. But in this film, he made the editor as important as any other worker in the revolution. The theoretician Lev Kuleshov also experimented with film editing. In his most famous study, he took a shot of a Russian actor and intercut it with 3 different objects: a bowl of hot soup, a distraught woman draped across her husband's coffin, and a little girl playing with a teddy bear. When audiences saw the film, they raved about the actor's performance. How hungrily he looked at the soup. How sorrowfully he gazed at the woman. And how tenderly he watched the little girl.
But actually, it was the same expression each time. Now, this demonstrates the power of juxtaposition, the power of montage, by taking one shot and another shot to give it a third meaning. And the third meaning is an effect, an emotion that's much greater than the sum total of the 2 parts that put it together in the first place. And this is the basis of all editing, by the way.
One of Kuleshov's contemporaries, Sergei Eisenstein, combined these experiments with Marxist ideology to create films of revolutionary fervor. He saw editing like history, as a clash of images and ideas. The meaning of the film was not in the shots themselves, but in their collision. When 2 elements are in conflict, he argued, their collision sparks a new meaning of higher order. Where Griffith tried to hide his cuts, Eisenstein reveled in them. He wanted the audience to feel the frame, to know that this is a movie, not life.
Eisenstein is the first real director. He killed himself in his staging, and he killed himself with his camera work and everything, but it was all at the service of the scissors. Every little single solitary bit.
I got a movie projector when I was like 11, and one of the first movies I got was Battleship Potemkin. I just ran that Odessa step sequence over and over again. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. One of the things that makes it incredible is the editing, the incredible juxtaposition of images. What the Russians did was a response to what Griffith had done. Classical editing, and now Eisensteinian montage, then you can take that further. The American cinema has absorbed all of that stuff from the Russians, and now it's in our films. The fact is that many of these techniques have been appropriated into what we do every day as editors, right here in Hollywood, California, making action pictures. because we are also trying to get a response from the audience. We are also trying to get them to rise out of their seats, rise out of their complacency, but not necessarily for revolutionary purposes, but just to really have a great time in the movies.
You've got suspense and you've got action, and I've found a good combination in the two Terminator films was to have a suspenseful build-up to an action release. In Terminator 2, you have a slow, tense build-up of these characters moving around, closing in on young John Connor, and then he sees the Terminator for the first time, and it's all in slow motion. And I like to use the slow motion in the build-up, where it has this kind of protracted, dreamlike or nightmarish quality, and then there's a cathartic break, and then it kicks into gear.
Get down.
Chase, something is going right or something is going wrong, and you want to accentuate that. Rhythm is one of the ways you do that. You also want to create peaks and valleys in terms of rhythm.
Chases are a wonderful thing to work on as an editor. I wouldn't want to do them as a steady diet, but every now and then it's great fun. My favorite chase that I've ever worked on, actually, was the canal chase, as we called it, in Terminator 2.
Our ancestors were survivors, therefore we're here. And so there's something plugged into our reptilian hindbrain that makes us relate to the idea of being pursued and getting away. So we get to go through these kind of cathartic simulator runs when we watch a movie, and we get to experience that heart-pounding fear of being chased.
It's a natural form of excitement. Editing can hone that, sharpen that. The tempo of the cuts, the variety of shots that are used, the changing image sizes of characters, reactions, eyes, all these things are in the palette. By manipulation and juxtaposition, you can increase the excitement.
This is the first thing in that I'm standing up, which allows me a considerable amount of freedom of movement, and it also means that I'm sprung. I guess that's the only word for it. And frequently when I'm looking at the cut, I will stand here with my hand on the controls, almost like a gunslinger, and trying to hit the point of the cut with my knees bent. And somehow this is important for me because it allows me to internalize the rhythms, the visual rhythms of what's happening. At this point, we've started with a blank slate. So the question is, what are we going to start with? That looks like a good possibility. It establishes things. We could begin it anywhere in here, but see, there now somebody falls right here, and that's good. Falling is good. We will edit this shot into the timeline. And there it is. In the end, there will be probably 5,000 shots in the film, and all of them have to be ultimately be the right shot in the right place for the right length of time.